She dropped her passport. Right there, in the boarding line for Gate 26A, Charles de Gaulle, Paris. It slid across the polished airport tile like fate itself had decided I needed proof. I bent down and picked it up before she noticed. Her name, Dana Elkins, was printed neatly on the cover, exactly as I expected. It wasn't the passport that shook me. It was the man standing beside her, carrying 2 cups of coffee and whispering something into her ear that made her laugh like she hadn't in years. That laugh used to be mine. I should have walked away. Should have handed the passport to an agent and let her figure it out. But I didn't. I stood there, one hand clenched around her little blue booklet, the other trembling like it had forgotten how to be part of my body. She didn't see me. Of course she didn't. She never sees me anymore. Not when she's home, not when I'm speaking, not even when I'm crying in the laundry room while she showers after late meetings. They moved closer to the gate, still laughing. She took her coffee and gave him that same little playful punch on the arm I used to get when I said something stupid and charming. Now it was his. I kept watching, like some pathetic ghost stuck between gates. He kissed her temple. She leaned in like it was the most natural thing in the world. And that's when I realized she wasn't traveling for work. She wasn't attending a logistics summit in Chicago. She was flying to Paris with him, with this clean-shaven, sunglasses-on-the-head stranger who probably thought her name was cool and edgy and didn't know she used to snore when she drank wine. She lied to me. Again. She even left a sticky note on the fridge. Don't forget to water the fern. I'll miss you, babe. The fern's already dead, Dana. Just like this marriage. I turned around and walked to the farthest bench in the terminal, sat down, and stared at her passport still in my hand. I had the power to stop her from boarding that plane. I could walk over, hold it up, and say, hey, you forgot your identity. But I didn't. I just sat there like a loser, thinking of all the ways I'd begged for her time, her attention, her voice. How I once bought her tickets to a local wine tasting just to have her cancel last minute because of a migraine. Funny how migraines disappear when you're boarding a plane with someone new. I eventually stood up, walked over to a nearby flight desk, gave them the passport. They smiled and thanked me like I was doing a good deed. Meanwhile, my heart was falling out of my chest, and they didn't even notice. I walked out of the airport in silence, drove home without the radio on. I didn't cry, not yet, but I did sit in my driveway for over an hour, just staring at the garage door, realizing I didn't know who lived behind it anymore. The house was too quiet when I got back. Not the kind of quiet that brings peace, but the eerie, echoing kind that makes your own breath sound like a mistake. I stepped inside, dropped my keys into the bowl by the door, and stared at the sticky note still clinging to the fridge like a joke that had gone too far. Don't forget to water the fern. I'll miss you, babe. I stood there staring at it like it might morph into an apology. It didn't. The fern was already brown, crispy, neglected. I hadn't watered it in weeks because she hadn't reminded me. And isn't that absurd? I couldn't keep a plan alive without her telling me what to do. Maybe that's why she left. Maybe she needed someone who didn't need instructions taped to the fridge to function. I walked through the living room and realized for the first time that her presence still haunted every corner. Her cardigan draped over the back of the couch. Her half-finished lavender candle on the coffee table. A wine glass in the sink from 3 nights ago, lipstick still visible on the rim. I hadn't touched it. Not because I was lazy, but because I couldn't bring myself to clean up her. That would mean admitting she wasn't coming back. Except I knew better now. She wasn't just gone for a few days. She was gone in spirit, gone in heart, gone in loyalty. Paris wasn't a business trip. It was a detour into a second life I didn't belong in. And while I sat here letting my cereal get soggy every morning and re-watching the same 6 shows on Netflix, she was sipping espresso with Mr. Sunglasses at a cafe on the Seine. I wanted to scream. I really did. But the only sound that came out of me was a dry, pathetic cough. Because, of course, I'd forgotten to drink water today. Again, I sat down on the couch and pulled the blanket over me like some kind of emotional shield. It smelled like her. That scent, vanilla and citrus, hit me so hard I had to physically turn my face away. I hated her and missed her in the same breath. My phone buzzed on the armrest. A text. From Dana. Just landed. Long flight. Hope you're eating something decent. I stared at it for a full minute, rereading it over and over. Not a single word of warmth. No heart emoji. No, miss you more than ever. Just a dry, robotic note like I was a houseplant she left behind on the windowsill. I didn't respond. I wanted to. I had about 17 drafts in my head, ranging from snarky to pathetic. But I didn't send any of them. Instead, I opened Instagram. That was a mistake. She'd posted a story. Just 10 seconds. A glass of wine, clinking with someone else's, blurred background of what looked like a rooftop view. A soft laugh, unmistakably hers. She hadn't posted anything in weeks. Why now? Why this? I felt that twist in my chest again. That sinking, slow implosion like gravity had suddenly turned personal. I wanted to throw the phone, but I didn't. I just stared at the screen like it owed me an explanation. I opened our photo album, the one labeled us. Over 300 photos of smiles that I now suspected were all lies. There we were on the Ferris wheel at the pier, at her sister's wedding, on that camping trip where we fought over how to pitch the tent and ended up laughing so hard we forgot to eat dinner. Was any of that real? Or was I just a placeholder until she found someone better? I didn't sleep that night. I just laid on her side of the bed, trying to absorb whatever warmth she'd left behind in the sheets. I imagined them together, laughing in a hotel room, maybe watching a foreign movie she'd pretend to understand. Did he know about me? Did she mention my name? Or was I just a minor footnote in her before chapter? And yet, part of me still hoped. Isn't that the most humiliating part? After everything I saw, after watching her kiss him and walk into that terminal like she was free, I still hoped she'd call and say, "Milo, I messed up. Come get me." She didn't. Of course not. All I had was a dead fern, a wine glass, and a message that sounded like it was meant for a coworker. And the thing is, those might have meant nothing on their own. But when you piece them together, you get a clear picture. I wasn't part of her life anymore. I was part of her past. I hadn't intended to read her emails. Honestly, I was trying to log into our shared Amazon account to cancel a subscription, something dumb like a monthly lavender essential oil delivery that she always insisted on keeping. I typed in her usual password, the same one she used for everything. It worked. That's when I saw the email notifications popping up in the corner. A subject line blinked. "Thank you for an unforgettable weekend." I don't know what possessed me, but I clicked. It was from a man named Vaughn. The name alone made me want to punch a wall. Who names their kid Vaughn? He sounded like the kind of guy who grew up with horseback riding lessons and never had to microwave leftovers. And as I read his message, my stomach caved in on itself. It wasn't explicit. No, that would have been too easy, too obvious. It was worse than that. It was romantic. It was intimate in the way you only write to someone you know down to their bones. He wrote things like, "I can still feel your breath on my collar," and "You make the city feel slower, like time stops when we're together." Time stopped for me, all right. I scrolled through her inbox like a man searching for confirmation of the fire he already smelled in the walls. There were dozens of emails from him. Some recent, some dating back 3 months. One even included a receipt for a pair of show tickets in Chicago. Funny, that same weekend she told me she was at a leadership conference in Phoenix. Another message linked to a private album on some cloud service. I didn't open that. I couldn't. I knew whatever was in there would splinter me into pieces too small to ever be recognizable again. But the part that got me, what truly wrecked me, was that she never once mentioned me. Not even in passing. Not even a "can't talk," "my husband's home," or "let's wait, I'm being watched." Nothing. It was like I didn't exist. I shut the laptop and sat there for what must have been an hour. My legs went numb. My hands were trembling. I kept hearing Vaughn's stupid poetic sentences ringing in my head. I was nauseous. Like seasick on dry land. I went to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red. My face looked sunken. I hadn't shaved in days. I looked like a man unraveling at the edges. And yet the mirror gave me no sympathy. It just reflected back the guy who'd let this happen under his nose. I went back to her side of the bed, don't ask me why, and laid there, staring at the ceiling. The fan spun slowly above, and all I could think about was how I used to trace the freckles on her shoulders while she slept. How she'd roll toward me and rest her leg over mine like a dog marking its territory. That same leg was probably curled around Vaughn last night. And the thought of that, it sent me into the kitchen without thinking. I opened a bottle of wine. Red. Something dry she used to love. I drank straight from it like I was trying to swallow the ache. Halfway through, I dropped the bottle. It didn't shatter, but it rolled across the floor in that slow, mocking spiral like it was laughing at me. I found myself crying again. Quiet, stupid tears that slipped out without drama. No sobbing. No shouting. Just this steady leak of despair I couldn't control. And somewhere in that mess, I called my mom. She picked up on the second ring. I hadn't even meant to call her, but she answered like she knew something was wrong. All I said was, "She's in Paris." My voice cracked. And my mother, my calm, church on Sundays, always put together mother, let out this little sigh like she'd been waiting for that day to come. "I wondered when it would break," she said softly. "You've been shrinking for years, honey. I've seen it." That destroyed me more than anything Dana could have written. Because my mom saw it. And I didn't. She told me to come home, sleep in my old room for a few days, clear my head. But I couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to leave the wreckage. Part of me still hoped I could glue something back together. Part of me thought she might come back and say it wasn't what it looked like. And part of me knew she never would. I didn't sleep. Again. I sat at the kitchen table until the sun started bleeding through the blinds. I thought about messaging Vaughn, just to let him know I existed, just to ruin his fantasy with reality. But I didn't, because that would make me a footnote too. Just another bitter ex. Instead, I started writing this, because I don't know what else to do. 3 days passed. I didn't shave. I didn't shower. I didn't even change my shirt. I just existed in that strange limbo between heartbreak and paralysis. I went through Dana's closet twice. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe a clue. Maybe something to confirm that this wasn't real. That it was all just some twisted misunderstanding. But all I found were the dresses I bought her, still on their hangers, and the scarf I gave her for Christmas last year, still smelling faintly of the perfume she used when she used to love me. I couldn't even bring myself to sleep in our bed anymore. I moved to the couch. It was lumpy and made my back ache, but at least it didn't smell like her. I started talking to myself more than I'd care to admit. I even tried talking to the dead fern. I named it George. George wasn't a great listener, but he didn't lie. That made him better company than most people in my life at the moment. I was still there, sitting with a half-eaten bowl of cereal and a cracked phone screen, when my phone rang. Not a text. A full-on call. My heart jumped into my throat when I saw the caller ID. It was Dana. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the screen like it weighed 50 pounds. Why was she calling now? Did she miss me? Did something happen? Did Vaughn abandon her on the Seine after realizing she wasn't quite as enchanting without the wedding ring? I answered. "Hey," she said, her voice calm. Too calm. Not an ounce of urgency. I didn't speak right away. My mouth was open, but my brain was lagging behind. "You there?" she asked, a soft chuckle in her tone like I was the one being weird. "I'm here," I finally managed, my voice hoarse from days of silence. "Still watering the fern." She laughed. Laughed. "That thing died months ago, Milo." "I know." A pause. Then, "I just wanted to check in. Make sure you're okay." I almost dropped the phone. "Make sure I'm okay?" She left for Paris with another man, sent a soulless text, and now she was checking on me like I was a neighbor she lent a lawnmower to? "I saw you at the airport," I said, all at once. I didn't plan it. It just tumbled out of my mouth like a confession I couldn't hold any longer. Silence. Not a gasp. Not a stutter. Just pure, chilling silence. "You." "What?" she finally whispered, voice thinner now. "Gate 26A. Friday. You dropped your passport." I picked it up. "You didn't even see me." I laughed bitterly. "You were too busy giggling with Mr. Collar Kisses." I heard her inhale. Sharp. Then came the defensive tone, the one I knew too well. "Milo, you shouldn't have a..." "Shouldn't have what?" I snapped, louder than I meant to. "Been at the airport? Seen the truth? Watched my wife leave the country with someone who clearly doesn't need a sticky note to remember a plant." She went quiet again. A rustle in the background. Maybe she moved to another room. Maybe she didn't want Vaughn to hear. "I didn't plan for you to find out that way," she finally said, softer now, almost guilty. "Was there a way you did plan?" I asked. "Or were you hoping I'd be too busy heating up leftovers to notice you were living a second life?" There was a long, shivering pause. Then she said something I wasn't ready for. "I'm not coming back, Milo." There it was. No apology. No explanation. Just that one flat sentence. I figured. I whispered. I already changed the sheets. I ended the call before she could respond. My hands were trembling, and I wanted to scream, but instead I just sat there in stunned silence. The kind that doesn't feel like peace, just the absence of sound after the wreckage. I didn't cry. Not this time. I felt something worse than sadness. I felt used. Like a hotel she'd stayed in until she found a better view. Like a song she'd played to death before skipping it every time it came on. I spent the rest of the night cleaning. Scrubbing the house top to bottom like I could erase every fingerprint she'd left. I found her old earrings in the bathroom drawer. Tossed them. Her leftover moisturizer? In the trash. I deleted every photo, every message, every memory I could find on my phone. It felt like purging poison. But even after all that, I knew the ghost of her was still here. In the corners. In the air. In my damn bloodstream. And I knew. I had to do something more than just sit and mourn. That night, something inside me changed. Not strength. Not anger. Just movement. For the first time since the airport, I got up, not to wallow, but to act. I started with her side of the closet. I pulled out each hanger slowly, one by one, inspecting every dress, blouse, scarf, and stupid little weekend hoodie she kept for lounging. Not angrily. Not even resentfully. I was calm, too calm, like I was prepping a museum exhibit for a woman who no longer existed. I bagged everything. Shoes, too. Her books from the nightstand. Her silk pillowcase. Even the vitamin gummies she always insisted on taking in pairs for luck. I didn't cry, but I paused on that last item a long time. By noon, the guest bedroom was stacked with black trash bags full of her life. I was going to donate them, or maybe drive them to her sister's place. That idea settled in me fast, solid, satisfying, like a plan that actually mattered. Maggie, Dana's older sister, lived 40 minutes away. We'd never been especially close, but she always treated me kindly, like I was the good one between the two of us. When Dana started pulling away last year, Maggie would text now and then, asking how we were doing. I'd always just say, fine, because what else could I say? That my wife had started treating me like a dog she forgot to walk? I texted her, can I swing by? Need to drop some things off. She replied instantly, come. You okay? I didn't answer. The drive over was painfully quiet. I kept the radio off. Every song suddenly seemed like it had a message I didn't want to hear. Maggie opened the door before I could even knock. She looked tense. Her hair was pulled back, no makeup, sweatshirt on inside out like she hadn't expected company today. Milo, she said softly. I couldn't even fake a smile. Hey, got a few things Dana probably doesn't want me torching. She stepped aside, gesturing toward the hallway. I carried 3 heavy bags inside and set them down by her dining room table. She hovered behind me, clearly uncomfortable, wringing her fingers like she wanted to tell me something but hadn't decided if she should. I talked to her, Maggie finally said. I stopped moving. When? Last night. She told me you found out. About? Everything. I turned to face her. And you knew. Maggie bit her lip. She looked down, then back up with guilt swimming in her eyes. I didn't know at first, but a couple weeks ago, I pieced it together. She was talking about someone who made her feel alive again. I asked if it was you. She didn't answer. I felt sick. And you didn't think to warn me? To say, hey Milo, your wife's about to run off to Europe with someone named Vaughn. She took a breath like she was swallowing nails. I didn't know how. I wanted to believe she'd come to her senses. I thought it was a phase. She said it wasn't serious, that it was just something she needed to figure out. I never imagined she'd actually leave. I looked away. My hands were shaking again. This always happened when I felt betrayed, like my body wanted to escape my skin and leave the rest behind. She left, I said quietly. And she's not coming back. She told me that herself. On the phone, Maggie covered her mouth with her hand. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry, Milo. I am. You didn't deserve this. I laughed bitterly. Deserve has nothing to do with it. She didn't fall in love with Vaughn because I was a bad husband. She fell in love with him because she stopped seeing me. And I kept making excuses for her until it was too late. She didn't argue, just sat down and stared at the floor. I didn't mean to say the next part, but it came out anyway. Did you know she used my birthday to cover her last trip? Told me she was going to Denver for a women's networking event. She came back with a French chocolate bar and a pamphlet from the damn Eiffel Tower. Maggie flinched. Did you know she told Vaughn I was emotionally distant? I added, that I didn't support her career? That I made her feel like a prisoner in her own home? Because I saw the emails. I read them. She stood up abruptly. I didn't know that. I didn't know any of that. Milo, if I had, I would have said something. I swear. I believed her. But it didn't help. We stood there in the awkward silence of 2 people who both lost the same woman, just in different ways. Maggie eventually offered me coffee. I declined. I just wanted to go home, to sit back in the empty space where she used to be and figure out what came next. But as I was walking out, Maggie said something that stopped me cold. She said you were too soft to ever leave her. I turned. She told me that, once, that you'd never walk away, that you'd forgive anything. I felt like I'd been slapped. I nodded once. Then I guess it's time to stop proving her right. I didn't go home after I left Maggie's place. I didn't go anywhere, really. I just drove. Past the town line. Past the gas station Dana, and I used to stop it for road trip snacks. Past the stupid billboard with that grinning dentist she always made fun of. I drove until the sun dipped under the trees and the air started turning orange like it had something to confess. At some point, I pulled over at a rest stop and sat in my car for nearly an hour, staring at the steering wheel like it owed me answers. The passenger seat was empty. I kept glancing at it out of habit, as if she'd pop up beside me with a sarcastic comment about my music choice. She didn't. The truth is, something in me snapped after that talk with Maggie. I couldn't keep living in the house where her ghost lived in every drawer. I couldn't keep waking up and expecting to hear her footsteps and getting silence instead. And I sure as hell couldn't be the man she described in those emails anymore. The weak, spineless shell who forgave everything and stood for nothing. So I left. No warning. No plan. No forwarding address. I parked the car at a cheap motel 3 towns away, paid cash, and signed a log with a fake last name. I turned off my phone. Not just airplane mode, off. Gone. Radio silence. It was probably the most dramatic thing I'd done in my entire adult life, and it felt like oxygen. I didn't cry that night, but I didn't sleep either. I laid on the stiff motel mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling, surrounded by the scent of old bleach and failure. I played out different versions of my future in my head. None of them included Dana. And for once, that wasn't terrifying, it was just quiet. The next morning, I shaved, cleaned myself up, put on a shirt that didn't smell like neglect. I went to a nearby diner and sat in a corner booth with a notebook I bought from a gas station. I started writing, not to her, not even about her, but about me. Things I liked, things I hated, things I gave up because they didn't fit into her version of who I was supposed to be. And the more I wrote, the angrier I got. Not just at her, but at myself. For becoming so small. For walking on eggshells while she packed her bags for a Paris escape with someone who didn't know she snored or got anxiety attacks during thunderstorms. I gave up so much of myself just to keep our marriage from tipping, and she was already drilling holes in the hull. Later that day, I turned my phone back on. 37 missed messages. From her. None of them said, "Where are you?" or "I'm worried." They said things like, "When are you planning to move out?" and "Let's keep this civil, Milo." Civil. She didn't even pretend to care. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't even notice that I had vanished for nearly 2 days. And that was the final nail. I sent her one text. Just one. "You don't have to wonder where I went. You never really saw me anyway." I powered the phone back off. That message wasn't for her. It was for me. I needed to write it. I needed to feel the weight of that truth click into place. I checked into a month-to-month rental apartment the next day. Small. Barely furnished. Quiet. Perfect. That night, I cooked myself dinner for the first time in years. Nothing fancy, just grilled cheese and soup. But I sat at the table like it meant something. Like I meant something. I toasted to no one. To silence. To the empty chair across from me that no longer held a liar. I still wasn't okay. I knew that. I still hated the way my chest tightened every time I thought about Vaughn's hand on her back. I still had dreams where she came home, smiling, saying it was all just a bad joke. But I was moving. Not fast, not gracefully, but I wasn't standing still anymore. It started with silence. Not revenge. Not confrontation. Just silence. After I moved into the rental, I didn't tell anyone, not even my brother. I didn't forward my mail. I didn't update my address. The only thing I kept was my job, working remotely, and even that I scaled back to the bare minimum. I lived like a man under witness protection, except the person I was hiding from wasn't dangerous. She was indifferent. And sometimes indifference feels worse than hate. The first few days were eerily peaceful. I walked to the market in the mornings. I sat in a park and watched strangers live lives that didn't collapse like mine did. I scribbled down thoughts in the same notebook, page after page of messy handwriting, things I never dared say out loud when I was married. Like how lonely I'd felt, how invisible I'd become, how often I fantasized about someone, anyone, looking at me the way she used to. Then something strange happened. I got an email. From a name I didn't recognize, subject line, "Are you okay?" I almost deleted it. Then I saw the address, Dana's maiden name, a private account I didn't know she still used. My hands froze above the keyboard. I opened it. There were only 2 lines. "I haven't heard from you. Where did you go?" You're scaring me. And that's when I realized I'd won something without meaning to. She didn't know where I was. She didn't know if I was alive, broken, healing, or gone. The man she assumed would sit quietly in his corner while she ran off to play European fantasy with Vaughn had finally vanished. And her world didn't feel as tidy without me waiting in the background, predictable, pitiful, and safe. I didn't reply. Not out of spite. Not out of pride. But because I needed her to feel it. The absence. The uncertainty. The quiet. I wanted her to look over her shoulder and wonder if I'd show up in the places she forgot she once took me. I wanted her to stare at her phone at 2 a.m. and question why I hadn't begged her to come home. I wanted her to realize that the softest man in her life was no longer cushioning her choices. That same week, I ran into someone unexpected, her coworker, Taylor. We bumped into each other at a bookstore. I tried to duck behind a shelf, but she saw me. "Milo," she said, eyes widening. I nodded. "God, we thought something happened to you." "Dana's been. Well, she's been kind of a wreck." That caught me off guard. A wreck. Taylor lowered her voice. "She came back early. Vaughn didn't. It didn't go how she thought. She said he changed once they got there. Controlling. Dismissive. They fought almost the entire trip. She's been staying at her mom's. Nobody's heard much from her since." I didn't say anything. I just nodded and pretended to flip through a book on the clearance table. My heart was racing. "She asked me if I'd seen you," Taylor continued. "Said you disappeared. That she wasn't even sure if you were still in town." I looked up. "I'm still here." She tilted her head, like she was seeing me for the first time. "You look different. Stronger." I forced a smile. "Or just tired." We said our goodbyes. I walked out of that store and sat in my car with the engine running, not moving. Vaughn was out of the picture. Dana was unraveling. And I wasn't even sure how I felt about any of it. I didn't want her back. Not anymore. But I wanted her to understand the damage she caused. I wanted her to feel it in her bones. Not just for a day. For a while. So I sent her one thing. No words. No explanation. Just a single photo attachment. It was a picture of the dead fern. Black, wilted, and bone-dry in its cracked ceramic pot. 30 seconds later, she replied, "Why are you doing this?" I stared at the message and shook my head. She still didn't get it. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't cruelty. This was what she'd done to me, only now the mirror was facing the other direction. I had been the fern. Dry. Neglected. Decorated only when convenient. And when I finally stopped growing, she blamed the environment. Now she was sitting in that same empty silence I'd lived in for months, and I was finally breathing fresh air. That night, I slept with the windows open for the first time in years. No nightmares. No regrets. Just the sound of wind rustling a new plant I'd bought for the windowsill. It wasn't thriving yet, but it was alive. 2 weeks passed before she showed up in person. I had just come back from the farmer's market. It wasn't something I ever did when we were together. Dana hated anything that didn't have polished floors and ambient music. But I liked it. The smell of fresh bread, the sound of strangers laughing over peaches. It made the world feel real again. I was carrying a brown paper bag of tomatoes and blackberries when I saw her. Standing at the edge of my building's parking lot like she didn't know how she got there. Her hair was messy. She looked thinner. Nervous. She didn't see me right away, so I had a full minute to just watch. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like I owed her a conversation, or forgiveness, or even acknowledgement. I was just a man with groceries, standing on his own. She spotted me. Her lips parted. "Milo." I nodded. "Dana." She looked at the bag in my hands, then at the building. "You really left." "I had to." "I thought you were." She started, but then stopped. Her voice cracked. "I don't know what I thought. You always used to be so predictable." I gave a dry smile. "Yeah, that was the problem." She stepped closer, slowly, like I was going to disappear if she blinked. "I didn't come here to make excuses," she said. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Truly. For all of it. I was cruel. I took you for granted. I lied. And I thought you'd just take it. I thought you'd always be there. But you weren't. And that shook me." I didn't answer right away. I looked past her at the horizon. The clouds were breaking apart, and sunlight was dripping through like it finally decided to show up. "I used to think loving someone meant staying no matter how much it hurt," I said. "But now I know love doesn't mean standing still while someone else walks away." Dana swallowed. "I get that now." I let out a breath that had been living inside me for years. "I don't hate you, Dana. I just can't carry you anymore." She nodded slowly, eyes glassy. "I know. And just like that, she turned and left. No drama. No parting hug. Just two people who used to know each other walking back into separate lives. I went upstairs and unpacked my groceries. I sliced the tomatoes, sprinkled sea salt, and poured a glass of water. I sat by the window, let the breeze in, and stared at the little green plant I'd been keeping alive. George 2.0. A second chance at something I thought I'd failed at. And I smiled. Not because I had everything figured out. Not because I'd healed completely. But because I was getting there. Day by day. Quietly. Honestly. Sometimes we don't get the closure we expect. Sometimes we don't get the person back. But sometimes, if we're lucky, we get ourselves back. And that's more than enough.